I didn't realize they'd already decided what I was at my son's wedding until I saw my name printed in gold foil, Charity. I pinned the card to my dress like a good guest and smiled so the photographer wouldn't have to crop around me. Then I turned, walked past the champagne tower I'd paid for, past the place cards I'd calligraphed, and out through the kitchen door with the sugar smell still clinging to my shawl. I left without saying a word to my boy, to his bride, to her mother who had insisted on tasteful signage, to anyone. People think storms announce themselves. They don't. The quiet ones do the most damage. By the time the band started the first dance, I had already decided which telephone calls to make and which drawers to open. By dessert, I knew where the rot had started and how far it had spread. And by the toast, the word on my chest would stop meaning a woman to be pitted and start meaning a case file. That's the part I'm willing to show you at the start, like the glint of a blade seen through a half-closed door. The rest you'll have to follow thread by thread, because revenge, mine, at 72, is nothing like what the movies teach you. It is slow. It is method. It is the patience of a librarian who spent 40 years watching people misfile things and then finding what mattered anyway. My name is Eliza Hart. People call me Liza when they love me and Ms. Hart when they don't know what to do with me. I raised my son, Oliver, alone. His father left before Oliver could say the word truck, and if you've never tried to hold down 2 jobs while chasing a toddler who thinks stairs are a form of destiny, then bless you, you are lucky. We survived. That's the short version people prefer. They don't want the long one about working circulation nights at the public library, counting coins for bus fare, and learning how to mend a winter coat so cleanly that a guidance counselor once asked Oliver if his grandmother helped out. I have never been anyone's grandmother on paper. But I am a grandmother in training. My hands know the weight of a secret, the temperature of a sick child's forehead, the lacework of other people's lies. All this is useful if you mean to do what I did. The venue was an old marina house with a veranda and a view that made even the river cranes look like swans. When I arrived, early because punctuality is the currency of women like me, a young woman at the welcome table flipped through the cards and handed me mine with a rehearsed smile. Here you go, Ms. Charity. Is that a first name or a suggestion? I said lightly. I'm pleasant when cornered. It buys time. She blushed. That's what it says in the spreadsheet. I looked down at the gold letters. Charity. Not mother of the groom. Not Eliza Hart. Not even Ms. Hart. Just a label the way you label a storage bin in a garage you don't visit. I stood there long enough to notice the other cards: groom's colleagues, bride's family, riverside neighbors, vendors, press. Press? There was no press at a wedding. Not unless someone expected a photo to work like a door. I knew who loved doors. Her name is Veronica Vale, and she is the bride's mother. She has the smile of a woman who mistakes sincerity for lighting. Before the engagement, she had insisted I call her V, as if we were girls together. After the engagement, she called me dear, because some words can be sharpened. Veronica donates to everything with her name in 12-point font and has chaired more benefits than I have birthdays. She is the sort of woman whose bracelets clink like small applause. I found her near the dessert table, inspecting the sugared figs. You can tell the kind of person someone is by how they treat figs, and Veronica was lifting them by their stems like a queen choosing a horse. Oh, Eliza, she said, the way you speak to a misplaced decoration. You found us. I found my card, I replied. It says Charity. Her smile brightened. Oh, we did a little donor tier thing on the seating chart. Isn't it festive? You're such a you've been so generous. I paid invoices, I said. That's the most generous thing of all. Her hand fluttered toward my shoulder. You look lovely. Mauve suits you. I thought it was lilac, I said. Oh, dear, don't worry about the shade. It could have ended there with a foolish woman and her shallow cruelty. But names are never accidents. Somewhere, someone had opened a spreadsheet and chosen that word for me. Somewhere, someone had pressed enter and turned me into a category. And I would have swallowed it years ago. Not anymore. 72 wears a different spine. I walked out. On the sidewalk, the river breeze lifted my hair and the past with it. Oliver at 5, sitting beside me on the linoleum, eating cereal from a mixing bowl because the bowls were in the dishwasher and we were tired and happy anyway. Oliver at 12, cheeks hollowed by embarrassment because I'd shown up at his band concert with an orange bakery box tied with twine instead of the proper bakery white. Oliver at 20, looking me in the eye and saying, "Mom, she's not like the others," and me believing him because I wanted to believe in something after so long. I called a cab and told the driver to take me home, 2 neighborhoods over and a lifetime away. My house is small, yellow, and square, with hedges that keep secrets. Inside, everything that matters fits in a modest desk. The desk belonged to my mother, who believed that papers tell the truth even when people cannot. I opened the top drawer and took out the manila folder labeled Wedding Primary. Beneath it, Wedding Secondary. Beneath that, a folder with an elastic band and an old library circulation card clipped to the front. Family/finance, Oliver. Once a librarian, always. I had paid the deposits for the venue, the band, the photographer, the florist, the rentals, the shuttle, the tent in case of rain that never came, and the cake. Every receipt was here, as well as every contract, because I read them. When a vendor shrugged and said, "That's standard," I asked, "For whom?" and made notes in pencil. Vendors like you better when you pay them on time. They like you best when you know what they're afraid of. What I was looking for didn't appear on the first pass. Or the second. It appeared when I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through messages with Veronica's assistant, who signed her emails with a smiley face and no last name. Kira, smiley face. Kira had written to me about consolidating donor acknowledgements 3 months ago. I remembered thinking it didn't apply to me. I wasn't a donor. I was a mother. I opened the attachment. The file was titled ACK_policy_Vail Harbor Foundation. Docs. I don't trust anything with 3 capitalized words in a row unless it's an address or a grave marker. The document was a policy for a foundation I'd never heard of, the Harbor Vail Foundation. The logo, a watercolor anchor, was pretty in the way all pretty things become vague. The policy outlined how to recognize donors at events, signage, program listings, table nomenclature, gratitude statements, and press engagement. Press. I searched my email for Harbor Vail. 2 more results. An invitation to a gala I'd deleted, and an invoice I hadn't, an invoice from the florals vendor noting that 20% of design fee to be receipted via Harbor Vail for donor credit per agreement. Per whose agreement? The detective in me woke up fully then, the one that had been drowsing since I retired. Don't laugh. Librarians do detective work every day. We look for what isn't on the shelf. We remember faces of patrons who can't meet our eyes. We notice when someone asks for a different kind of book than the kind they return late. I printed the policy and put it on the desk like a map. Then I did what all good investigators do. I made a list of questions simple enough to embarrass someone. 1. What is Harbor Vail Foundation? 2. Who runs it? 3. What did I sign, if anything, that connects me to it? 4. Why is press involved in a wedding? 5. Who created the seating labels? 6. Who typed charity? My father used to say that if you ask a question that makes someone laugh first, they'll lie. If they get quiet, you're already halfway to the answer. I prefer quiet. The foundation had a website with a mission statement so polished it squeaked. Building bridges between communities and opportunities. The board of directors was 3 people, Veronica Vail, chair, her attorney, secretary, and a man whose name I recognized because people like me notice who signs parking permits. He ran a company that built little houses on lots that used to be basketball courts. The foundation listed a post office box and photos of Veronica in 3 different gowns, shaking hands with a mayor, a news anchor, and a child holding a ribbon. You cannot always tell a false thing from a true thing by its photos. But you can tell when a thing is trying too hard. Public filings are a blessing. Foundations file what they must. I pulled up the last 3 years of forms and read line by line, because I like to meet monsters on paper first. Harbor Vail's donations had spiked in the past 6 months. 1 large donor-advised gift, several mid-level event-related restricted contributions, and a note about in-kind support for community engagement. While the foundation's stated programs were after-school coding and literacy, I recognized the pattern of something else: money passing through, changing category, and coming out wearing a halo. If you've ever had to stretch a dollar until it became a line, you know when money is wearing a costume. At the bottom, tucked into a footnote, was what I didn't know to look for until I saw it: a reference to a fiscal sponsorship agreement with Vail Harbor Events, LLC. Events. Not literacy. Not coding. Events. I called the florist first, because people who work with flowers understand urgency. "Sweetheart," said the voice who had sent me hydrangea photos at midnight for 2 months. "Are you at the venue? We're about to do the room check. I need to know whether you receipted 20% of your design fee through the Harbor Vale Foundation," I said. "And by receipted, I mean, whose name is on the acknowledgement?" There was a beat. Not laughter. Quiet. "The foundation asked us to," she said carefully. "They said it was standard for event donors. We split the invoice like they requested. You paid the full amount. The receipt for the 20% went to the foundation." "You mean the tax acknowledgement," I said. "The letter people keep to feel righteous in April." "I just make things beautiful, Ms. Hart," she said. "I don't." "Yes," I said softly. "I know." I thanked her and called the photographer. Then the rentals. Then the band leader, who told me cheerfully that he'd given a shout-out to the foundation in a social post from Soundcheck because Kira had asked. My name was not in any caption. The foundation was everywhere, like a watermark on paper you bought with your own coins. I made tea and carried the mug around the house because it's useful to have your hands occupied when you are thinking about your past and your future at the same time. If I sound calm, it's because practice makes it so. You learn when you live long enough. That rage is a knife you can't hold without cutting yourself. What you can hold is a ledger. That's why I called Ruth. Ruth is not truly named Ruth. She is named Miriam, but everyone who has met her once calls her Ruth the second time because she carries the electricity of competence, and in scripture the competent women are always Ruths. She retired from the Attorney General's office a decade ago and plays bridge on Tuesdays only because the rules keep other people from cheating. "Liza," she said when I told her. "Come over." Ruth lives 4 blocks away in a house shaped like a chess piece. Her tea is always black and scalding, her biscuits always a day old, because good counsel is better than fresh pastry. I gave her the Harbor Vale filings and the invoices and the policy and my name card that said charity. "Who put this on you?" she said, turning the card in her fingers. "She reads paper like it's a witness." "Someone who believes a mother is a category," I said. Ruth read everything twice. Then she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "There are 2 crimes here," she said. "One moral and one possibly legal. The moral one we will remedy with clarity. The legal one we will remedy with letters." "I don't want to ruin Oliver's wedding," I said, and the words tasted like an old superstition. "His wedding will define itself without your help," she said. "What you can do is make sure no one stands on your shoulders without paying for the privilege." "What if I've raised a man who likes tall platforms?" I said. Ruth didn't answer that. "She never solves my heart for me." "Did you sign anything involving the foundation?" she asked. "No," I said. "I signed vendor contracts." "Let's read them again." We did. 3 of them had addenda, short, friendly paragraphs added by events coordinator, filed by Kira, and initialed by me, because I had initialed so many things that month that my initials began to look like a bird falling out of a tree. The addenda reaffirmed that payments would be processed according to the donor acknowledgement policy. They were small words that meant big things. I had agreed that part of what I paid could be recognized elsewhere. "Recognized," Ruth said, tapping the page, "is a velvet word. It covers sharp furniture. Can I pull the furniture out from under them?" "Yes," Ruth said. "Because the contracts are with you. If the foundation has processed acknowledgments for money you alone paid, they have created a false record. If they claimed a charitable contribution for event expenses that did not benefit the public, they may have misrepresented use. And if they used your money to buy themselves a press mention, I will make that press mention unpleasant." "You think they'll care?" "People like Veronica always do," Ruth said. "The currency they love is their reflection. Smudge it, and they panic." I slept that night for 3 hours, then woke with a clarity that did not feel like kindness. I wrote letters, not emails, letters. Paper is slower, but it says you mean things. I wrote the florist and the rentals and the band and the photographer, citing paragraph and line and reminding them gently that their contracts were with me and that any public acknowledgement connected to my payment required my written consent, which I was withdrawing. I wrote the venue manager, attaching a notice of modification. Any signage, including the foundation's name, constituted a violation of venue neutrality clause. It was in there if you looked hard enough. And I wrote the Harbor Vale Foundation itself, certified mail, requesting copies of all acknowledgments issued related to the wedding and revoking permission to use my payments for publicity. Then I sat with my pen in my hand, because the next letter would be the hardest. This one I didn't show to Ruth. This one I wrote to my son, Oliver. I came to your wedding and left because the card at the door told me who I was to your new family. I want to be wrong about that. I want to believe your wife's mother made a cruel choice without your blessing. I want to believe you do not know how my payments have been used to polish the image of a foundation that is, at best, a mirror. I am not asking you to fix this. I am asking you to read the papers I will enclose and to tell me whether you put my name on a spreadsheet as charity, and if so, why. I love you. Loving you does not mean being quiet for you anymore. Mom. I sealed the letters. Then I opened the lowest drawer in my desk where I keep my truly impolite tools, index cards, red string, thumbtacks. I built a map on the corkboard above the desk the way we did for difficult patron cases back when I was the librarian no one misled twice. Harbor Vale at the center. From it, threads to the wedding vendors, to the press, to Veronica's attorney, to the post office box, to the photo of Veronica holding giant scissors with the mayor beside her. From me, a single red string to the invoices. A different red string to Oliver. I left a space between the two strings because that was honest. The letters went out at noon. By 2, the florist wrote back to say of course and quietly asked whether it was wise to bring the arrangements into the shelter instead. She knew a place that would be grateful. By 3, the photographer deleted the post and wrote to ask if she could credit me personally. By 4, the band leader texted a peace offering. We'll announce you properly, he said. If you decide to come back tonight. I did not go back. Instead, I made soup and ate it standing up and listened to the sound of rain that never made it to my neighborhood. Halfway through washing the pot, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. This is Kira. Could we talk? I called. She didn't answer. I let it ring to the end. She texted instead. I'm sorry. MS. Heart, I didn't mean. To what? I typed back. To file my daughterhood under tax deductible? There was a pause. Then, I did what I was told. I wrote, so did I. For too many years. Another pause that was longer, the kind that contains a story you aren't owed. Then, there's something you should see. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., Harbor Vale office. I'll leave the door open. I slept 4 hours. Even wolves nap. The Harbor Vale office was rented excellence. White couches you couldn't sit on, a wall of acrylic awards, a splash of Bauhaus orange to signal daring. Kira waited with a file box on the floor beside her chair. She was younger than I expected and older than she wished, the way women become when they are paid to smile and to keep track of what other people aren't. I shouldn't be doing this, she said without preamble. But I'm the one who typed charity. I numbered the tables. Veronica told me to create tiers. Family, friends, press, charity. She meant donors. You paid for most things. She said. Kira swallowed. She said we could process acknowledgments through the foundation because it would help the optics. She called it a win-win. For whom? I asked. She said the vendors would be happy, you'd be happy, the foundation would get recognition, and the mayor would come for the photo. He only comes when there's a check for his favorite initiative. Kira gestured to the file box. Invoices. Emails. Memos. You might want copies. I did. But I wanted to ask the question my letter had not. Did Oliver know? Kira looked at the floor. He was in the planning channel. He saw the files. He didn't comment. Not commenting is a kind of signature, I said. I know, she whispered. I have a thing for men who don't type and then act surprised. Why are you doing this? I asked. Kira's chin lifted the way the chins of the brave do when they realize no one else will be brave for them. Because I realized last night I am going to turn into Veronica if I'm not careful. I'll wake up one morning and think feelings are decor. I carried the file box home like a relic. Inside were screenshots of messages, make sure Harbor is front-facing, and copies of recognition letters printed on creamy paper as if the quality of the stock could absolve the content. Acres of "on behalf of our mission, in service of a party." It wasn't just ugly. It was possibly illegal. Foundations can host events. They can thank donors. They cannot provide private benefit in exchange for public credit. They cannot turn a wedding into a gala. It's not that the law is noble. It's that it noticed this kind of person first and wrote rules to slow her down. I called Ruth. "Bring me coffee," she said. "And your patience." We spent the afternoon drafting 2 letters, one to the foundation, this time from Ruth. In her old letterhead she keeps like a talisman, requesting immediate corrective action and threatening notice to the Charitable Solicitations Division. The second to the mayor's office, which I did not intend to send but enjoyed writing anyway, reminding him that shaking hands with a mirror can leave fingerprints. Then Ruth asked me the question she had saved for last. "What do you want truly?" I'm old enough to answer that without lying to myself. "I want the name on my card to be mine," I said. "I want them to undress their words. I want Oliver to understand what he became in that room. And I want the money to do what it should have done, touch someone's life who isn't already standing under a chandelier." "Good," Ruth said. "God loves a specific prayer." We did not ruin the wedding. The wedding would ruin itself if quality control in the human heart was as bad as I suspected. But I would not sit in a kitchen chair again, pretending to chew chicken while the band played 3 doors down. I would make my own music. The next morning, a courier arrived with a thick envelope from the Foundation's attorney. It contained an apology that had been ironed of wrinkles by 3 associates and a partner. The letter assured me that any inadvertent mischaracterization of donor acknowledgments relative to private funds would be promptly corrected, that the Foundation had ceased all public recognition related to the event, and that they appreciated my concerns. Appreciated is cat hair. It clings. I called Ruth. "Good," she said. "Now we ask for the accounting." We did. A week of paper followed, and with it, the politest fury of the affluent. Veronica called Oliver, and Oliver called me. "Mom," he said. "Why are you making this a thing?" "Because it is a thing," I said. "It is my name." "It was just a card," he said. "You left on my wedding day." I left the second I understood where I was invited to stand. "You're overreacting." Overreacting is the word people use when you stop underreacting to their poor behavior. I did not say that. I said, "Did you know about the Foundation credits?" He hesitated. "It's just how these things are done." "By whom?" I asked again. "By whom?" He exhaled into the phone like the room was out of air because I had started breathing. Jess's mom said it would help with costs. That it was normal. That everybody wins. I didn't think it mattered where the thank you went. "It matters to me," I said. "Because most of my life I have been the woman who does the thanking and gets none. Because last night I realized you have no idea what that word on my chest felt like." He was quiet. This was not the good quiet of comprehension. It was the scared quiet of a man who realizes his narrative has a stain. "Mom," he said finally softer. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to say my name," I said. "And then I want you to meet me Friday at noon." "Where?" "You'll see." Friday at noon I stood outside the legal aid clinic on Riverside. It sits between a pawn shop and a bakery and looks like a place dreams go when they are too tired to dress up. Inside, there's always a line: single mothers with court dates, sons with envelopes they cannot read, women who look like I used to, trying to make a form behave. Oliver arrived late, which is how men apologize without saying the word. He wore a new ring and an expression that only fit him if you squinted. I had a stack of envelopes in my bag, each with the same amount written in neat figures and a letter enclosed. The money added up to what I had spent on the wedding. The letters were short. "This gift is given in honor of the word charity, which is not a name tag. Please use it to buy time for someone who needs it more than I needed chandeliers." There were 5 envelopes: housing clinic, food co-op, women's safe transport at night, a scholarship fund at the community college, and the library's after-school tutoring, which had saved my life and my son's 3 decades ago when I had a shift that wouldn't shift for me. Oliver stood reading a copy of the letter. "You're giving it all away?" "I gave it away the first time," I said. "To people who turned it into mirrors. This time I'm giving it away to windows." He looked up at me then, and in his face I saw the boy who once followed me through the stacks with a picture book and a lollipop I pretended not to smell. "I'm sorry," he said. He said my name after that. "I'm sorry, Mom." "Your apology can come with your hand," I said. "Help me carry them." We walked together to each office. I do not cry beautifully. I do that heavy, undignified crying old women do when the body remembers water. At the food co-op, a woman at a folding table moved her pen off to the side and pressed a palm to the paper like a blessing. At the scholarship office, the counselor with the scuffed shoes said, "You have no idea," and I said, "I do." At the library, the new director, young enough to be my granddaughter if I'd had a child who stayed near, took my hand and said, "We'll put your name on the board," and I said, "Put Mother's." Plural. There are so many of us. This is not revenge, you say. This is something else. Be patient. Revenge, done properly, is also administration. That afternoon, Ruth's letter to the Foundation's board went out to the state. We included copies of acknowledgments, invoices, and the policy. We did not ask for anyone to be punished. We asked for numbers to be corrected, for the practice to be reviewed, and for the Foundation to make a public statement clarifying that private event expenses are not charitable contributions. We did not demand an apology. Apologies from that kind of person are promoted lies. We demanded a retraction. The mayor's office issued a press release a week later about clarifying partnerships. No one used the word scandal. Scandal is for people with fewer veneers. But Veronica's name did not appear in the local glossy magazine that month. The photos from the wedding's exclusive coverage, because there it was, the press, ran without a mention of the Foundation. The caption under a picture of Oliver and his bride read, "A family celebration." That part made me laugh. And yes, I did one petty thing. I am 72, not a saint. I rented the billboard at the edge of the Marina Road for a week. I did not put my face on it or Veronica's. I put 3 words in plain black type, say her name. Then smaller, beneath, in a font every librarian knows, your mother's name is not Charity. Plenty of drivers didn't understand. A few did. I heard from them. I sent my mom flowers for no reason today. One stranger wrote in a card that arrived with a dried petal taped inside. "Thank you." Oliver called 2 days after the billboard went up. "Jess's mom is upset," he said. "I expect she is," I said. "She says you're destroying her reputation." "I am requesting accurate labels," I said. "You know how I am about labels." There was silence again. Then, carefully, "Mom, Jess is upset too. She says she feels caught." "Between what and what?" I asked. "Between the woman who makes her feel powerful and the woman who taught her son what power is?" He inhaled through his teeth. "I don't know how to fix this." "Then stop trying to fix it like a broken chair," I said. "It's a mirror. You can only clean it and decide where it faces." 2 weeks later, a note arrived from Veronica on heavy stock, so dense it could bruise a table. It contained the first genuine thing she had ever written to me. "Eliza, you could have come to me. You could have asked for an apology privately. You chose to make a spectacle. I hope it made you feel important. V.V." I tucked the note into the folder marked Wedding, Secondary. Then I took out an index card and wrote the names of the women who had mailed checks after the billboard, small, anonymous envelopes with handwriting that looked like mine at 29. Some included pressed flowers. One included a photo of a girl sitting cross-legged on a floor made of linoleum. When I had 10 names, I called Ruth. "I'm starting something," I said. "Good," she said. "Call it by its true name." "I don't want another foundation," I said. "I want something that doesn't need a gala to breathe. Something that works the way we worked, quietly, with receipts." "Then start a fund at the library," she said. "People can give through a public thing that already does public good. Put it in your name, and then take your name off the letterhead, like a game you have invented and win by not playing." We did. The library made a little plaque because libraries love plaques, and I let them because I love the library. It said, "The charity is Mother's." In spite of myself, I smiled every time I passed it. You might be wondering about Oliver. I was too. Sons are stories you begin long before anyone else starts reading. It took time. He called. He didn't. He showed up. He didn't. He sent texts that were bridges and then sometimes just planks. He cried once in my kitchen and asked if I had ever been this disappointed in him. I told him the truth. No. Disappointment is a chair. This is a door. You can walk through it. He gave me a grandchild's ultrasound picture on a rainy Tuesday without speeches. He and his wife began showing up on Sundays. They left earlier than they used to, but earlier than never is still something. I taught his wife, Jess, how to stew plums. She taught me how to use my new phone to make my text larger, which is a kindness I did not have the heart to refuse just because her mother has a talent for smallness. As for Veronica, she held another gala. I did not go. The mayor did not either, because he had learned what kind of hands he was shaking. The foundation revised its policy and posted it with relief, as if clarity were fashion. Kira sent me a screenshot with a little heart. She had found a new job at a clinic where the signs on the doors are for bathrooms and not for donors. Months passed. The billboard came down. The river returned to cranes and swans. I spent afternoons at the library, at the desk where I used to stand. I am not a librarian there anymore, but some people never stop being what they were. I helped a boy find a book about bridges for a science report and a woman fill out a form with lines that were too small. She wore a coat repaired so cleanly, I wanted to applaud whoever held the needle. If you expect a scene where Veronica is handcuffed by a principled officer while I stand in the doorway, you have been taught by the wrong stories. I don't deny the pleasure. But my end is different. On the day of the baby shower, the hostess handed me a name tag. It was blank, a little white rectangle with a black marker tied to the table. There was a moment, muscle memory, where I hesitated. Then I wrote my name the way I like it, Eliza, and underneath, I wrote Oliver's mother, and under that, smaller, because I felt like it, I wrote librarian. Jess looked over my shoulder and smiled. Should I write Jess, daughter-in-law? She asked. You write what you are, I said. She wrote Jess, and under it, learning. When the cake came out, it was small and round and unremarkable in any magazine. We ate it with paper forks while the band from the wedding, yes, the same band, because people are messy and lovely, played a slow song in the living room. The band leader caught my eye and touched the brim of his cap. He didn't shout anyone out. He just played. Later, after the guests left and the baby things were stacked like boats on a dock, Oliver and I stood in the kitchen. The night was soft, the kind that almost forgives. Mom, he said. I still feel awful. Good, I said. Keep a little of that. It's honest. I wish I had known better sooner. That's the sentence of a man who will know better again, I said. He touched the corner of a dish towel the way boys do when they want to hold their mother's hand and cannot yet forgive themselves for the need. Do you think, he said quietly, that I married into the wrong family? You married into another family, I said. Now make yours. We washed 2 plates together and set them to dry. I have done more dramatic things in my life, but none with a greater sense of arrival. I kept the name card that said charity. I framed it, not above the desk like a trophy, but on the inside of the closet door where I keep my coats. I look at it when I reach for something warm. It reminds me of the day I walked away and the days after when I walked toward. There is a detective who lives inside me. She will never retire fully. She still makes maps. She keeps a little list on a folded paper in my pocket that reads, Harbor Vale Policy Revised. Vendors corrected credits. Press coverage scrubbed of mirrors. Library fund established. Active. Son, practices saying my name. Baby on the way. And on that same paper, in a corner where no one else will read, I wrote another list, the one that matters most when the house is quiet. I am Eliza. I am not a category. I am not a card pinned to a dress. I am a woman who learned to turn a spreadsheet into a story with an ending she could live inside. People ask, sometimes softly and sometimes nosy, if revenge satisfied me. The answer is more complicated than a headline and simpler than a policy. It satisfied the part of me that believes in shelves, that every book belongs somewhere, that mislabeling is not just an error but an injury. It satisfied the part that loves the sound of a corrected record printing out of a reluctant machine. It satisfied the part that remembers a little boy with cereal in a mixing bowl, looking up and trusting. If you were waiting for a twist, here it is. Revenge for me was not watching Veronica fall. It was watching myself stand. And the only thing that ever made me taller at 72 was 3 words I have earned the right to say aloud without apology. Say my name.
Your watch to the end. Click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.